Have you ever stopped to think about why you do the things you do every day? Why you brush your teeth a certain way? Why you always have that same coffee in the morning? Or why you get that familiar feeling when you check your phone? These are not random actions, they are habits, and they play a surprisingly powerful role in shaping our lives. From the seemingly insignificant choices to the big decisions, our habits create the framework of our days and ultimately, our future selves. But what exactly are habits? They are the automatic responses we develop through repetition. Think of them as mental shortcuts our brains create to conserve energy. Each time we encounter a similar situation, our brains rely on these pre-programmed responses, allowing us to function without consciously thinking about every little detail. This frees up our cognitive resources for other, more demanding tasks. These deeply ingrained patterns of behavior can be incredibly beneficial, helping us navigate the complexities of life with greater ease and efficiency. But as we all know, not all habits are created equal. While some habits propel us towards success and well-being, others can sabotage our best intentions, leading us down a path of stagnation or even self-destruction. The good news is that we are not slaves to our habits. By understanding the science behind how they are formed and how they can be changed, we can take control of our actions and design a life that aligns with our goals and values. This essay will delve into the fascinating world of habits, exploring the neurological processes that underpin their formation and providing practical strategies for breaking free from negative patterns and cultivating positive ones. Join me as we embark on a journey of self-discovery, unlocking the secrets to lasting change and building a better version of ourselves, one habit at a time. Imagine your brain as a vast network of interconnected pathways. Each time you perform an action, whether it's brushing your teeth or scrolling through social media, you're essentially walking down a specific neural pathway. With repetition, this pathway becomes more defined, like a well-trodden path in a forest. Habits, then, are nothing more than these well-worn neural pathways, ingrained so deeply that they become our default mode of operation. They are the invisible architects of our daily routines, quietly shaping our choices, actions, and ultimately, our destinies. From the moment we wake up to the time our head hits the pillow, we're constantly engaging in habitual behaviors, often without even realizing it. Some of these habits serve us well, like that morning jog that invigorates our body and mind. Others, like mindlessly reaching for a sugary snack when we're stressed, may not be so beneficial. The key to understanding habits lies in recognizing their dual nature. They can be both our greatest allies and our most formidable foes, depending on the nature of the habit itself. Good habits like regular exercise or mindful eating act as stepping stones, propelling us towards our goals. They become the compound interest of self-improvement, yielding remarkable results over time. On the other hand, bad habits are like quicksand, slowly dragging us down into a cycle of unproductivity and unhappiness. Procrastination, negative self-talk, and unhealthy coping mechanisms can insidiously weave their way into our lives, sabotaging our best efforts to achieve our full potential. But here's the empowering truth. Regardless of whether a habit is perceived as good or bad, the underlying mechanisms of formation and change remain remarkably similar. By understanding these mechanisms, we can learn to harness the power of habits to our advantage, consciously designing a life that reflects our values and aspirations. Every habit follows a predictable three-step pattern known as the habit loop. This loop, consisting of a cue, a routine, and a reward, is the fundamental building block of every habit. Understanding this loop is crucial to breaking bad habits and building new ones. The first step in the habit loop is the cue. This is the trigger that sets the cycle in motion. It's a piece of information your brain associates with a behavior. Cues can be a specific time of day, like waking up, or a particular location, like your desk at work. Once your brain receives a cue, it triggers the routine. This is the actual behavior that makes up the habit. The final step in the habit loop is the reward. This is the payoff your brain receives for completing the routine. The reward reinforces the connection between the cue and the routine. Rewards can be the feeling of accomplishment after a workout or the dopamine rush of checking social media. By understanding the cue, routine, and reward, you can identify triggers and interrupt the cycle. This awareness is the first step towards taking control of your habits. Section 4. The brain's autopilot, basal ganglia, and habit formation. Deep within our brains lies a sophisticated structure known as the basal ganglia, a cluster of interconnected nuclei that play a pivotal role in habit formation. This ancient brain region, which we share with many other animals, is responsible for automating our actions, allowing us to perform routine tasks without conscious thought. Think of it as the brain's autopilot, taking over when we've repeated a behavior enough times for it to become automatic. When we first learn a new skill or behavior, our prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain responsible for planning and decision-making, is highly active. It's like we're consciously thinking through every step of the process, expending significant mental energy. However, as we repeat the behavior, the basal ganglia gradually take over. With each repetition, the neural pathways associated with that behavior become stronger and more efficient. This process is facilitated by a neurotransmitter called dopamine, often referred to as the reward molecule. When we engage in activities that bring us pleasure or satisfaction, our brains release dopamine, which strengthens the connections between neurons involved in that activity. This is why habits are so closely tied to rewards. The anticipation and experience of a reward, even a small one, trigger the release of dopamine, reinforcing the habit loop and making it more likely that we'll repeat the behavior. As the basal ganglia take over, the prefrontal cortex is freed up to focus on other tasks. This is why habits can be both incredibly useful and potentially problematic. On the one hand, they allow us to navigate our daily lives with greater efficiency, freeing up our cognitive resources for more demanding activities. On the other hand, this automation can make it challenging to break free from negative habits even when we consciously want to change. Section 5. Breaking bad habits. A battle against the brain. Breaking bad habits can feel like an uphill battle, a constant struggle against deeply ingrained neural pathways. It's not simply a matter of willpower or discipline. It requires a strategic approach that takes into account the underlying neuroscience of habit formation. When we try to break a bad habit, we're essentially trying to reroute those well-worn neural pathways, forcing our brains to forge new connections. One of the biggest challenges in breaking bad habits is that they often operate outside of our conscious awareness. We may not even realize we're engaging in the behavior until after the fact. This is because habits are often triggered by subtle cues in our environment that we've learned to associate with the behavior. These cues can be so deeply ingrained that we respond to them automatically without even thinking about it. Another challenge is that bad habits often provide us with some form of immediate reward, even if that reward is fleeting or ultimately harmful. This reward reinforces the habit loop, making it more likely that we'll repeat the behavior in the future. For example, procrastination might provide temporary relief from stress, but it ultimately leads to more stress and anxiety in the long run. To break free from the grip of bad habits, we need to disrupt the habit loop and weaken the neural connections associated with the unwanted behavior. This requires a multi-pronged approach that involves identifying our triggers, modifying our environment, finding healthy substitutes for the rewards we crave, and cultivating self-awareness to catch ourselves in the act. Section 6. Strategies for change, rewiring your habits. Changing ingrained habits can feel daunting, but understanding the science behind them equips us with the tools to regain control. It's not about overnight transformations, but rather about making small, consistent changes that gradually reshape our neural pathways. Here are some practical strategies to effectively rewire your habits. 1. Identify your triggers. The first step is to become aware of the cues that trigger your unwanted habit. Pay attention to the times of day, locations, emotional states, or preceding actions that often lead to the behavior. Once you've identified your triggers, you can start to avoid them or develop strategies for coping with them in a healthier way. 2. Modify your environment. Our surroundings play a powerful role in shaping our behaviors. If you're trying to break a bad habit, make it harder to engage in that behavior by altering your environment. For example, if you're trying to cut back on social media, delete the apps from your phone or use a website blocker to limit your access. 3. Find healthy substitutes. Habits often provide us with a sense of reward or fulfillment, even if it's temporary or ultimately harmful. To break a bad habit, it's helpful to find a healthier behavior that provides a similar reward. For example, if you tend to stress eat, try going for a walk, listening to music, or engaging in another activity you enjoy when you feel stressed. 4. Cultivate self-awareness. One of the biggest challenges in breaking bad habits is that they often operate outside of our conscious awareness. To overcome this, Practice mindfulness and pay attention to your thoughts, feelings, and actions throughout the day. The more aware you are of your habits, the better equipped you'll be to interrupt the automatic responses and make conscious choices that align with your goals.